Well, hello there. You're listening to the History of Aviation podcast. I'm Derrick Beeler. This is episode number 64, and it's called The Unsung Legacy of the Embraer ERJ145. And to start things off, I am joined by Mr. David Rowe. How you doing, David?
I am doing very well. Thanks for having us here. We're glad to be here. And it's been a busy week at work. We're still in disaster recovery mode, which means I've had the opportunity to see a whole lot of helicopters of late. Tri-Cities Airport has been just a hub for Blackhawks and Chinooks and Bell 406s and 429s. Lots of helicopters in and out, taking supplies to everybody that's been affected up here in Upper East Tennessee. So busy time, but we're getting a lot of stuff done, a lot of supplies put out. So good time here. We're making a difference.
Well, we appreciate you joining us today, and we are also joined by Mr. Dave Gorman. How are you, buddy?
Hey, doing great. Good to see everybody again, and looking forward to talking about this airplane. Things have been a little slower than usual. We're on fall break at my school, so that's been kind of nice. Been to a wedding over the weekend up in Kentucky. Got to see a whole bunch of family. And over in Crossville, Tennessee right now for a day or two. Actually heading back later tonight. Things are good, though. Have not seen all the helicopters that Mr. Rowe has seen, but I've certainly read a lot and seen pictures and videos that folks across the state have taken and shared of the incredible rescue and relief efforts that have been going on up in Upper East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. So our hats off to all those crew members and all the hard work that they're doing to help folks.
Yeah, and the situation in Florida now.
Absolutely.
It just keeps repeating, doesn't it? Our prayers definitely go out to those folks. And we are also joined by Mr. Julien Martinson. How's it going, Julien? I know you've got your second book in the works.
Well, that's correct. I'm in the process of getting my second book approved on Amazon, and it's entitled Mediocrity is Killing Your Superpower. So it's more of a motivational book, and it includes a little bit of personal anecdotes. And the whole essence of the book is about how to achieve the maximum output and achieve excellence in all your efforts in what your life, all areas of your life. And so it's a book that's easy to read and applicable to everybody. So that's the way to do it.
Good deal. I appreciate you being with us, Julien. And Julien, as we talk about this plane, you're our resident airline expert. And to introduce this aircraft, the Embraer ERJ145, what was the significant impact on regional aviation that it had?
Well, this airplane has really changed the impact of aviation because a lot of airlines, as you know, operate on a hub and spoke operation, which means that the way the airlines operate is that they have a couple of long haul flights that they want to fill. For an example, transatlantic flights to Europe. However, to fill those big aircraft, they require small regional airplanes to feed passengers from surrounding cities onto those connecting flights. So in the case of Toronto, we would have flights coming in from Halifax and Chicago and Saskatchewan and Quebec, for example, and you're flying passengers into the hub, Toronto, and putting them on those transatlantic, transcontinental flights. So this is an essential player and an important piece of that hub and spoke operation. And so many airlines operate this aircraft, including United Express, American Eagle, Air France Hop. British Airways also uses it, as well as Brazil's Azul Linhas Aéreas. So this aircraft's popularity among the regional carriers is due to its optimal balance of range, speed, and capacity, making it a go-to choice for connecting secondary airports with larger hubs, which is I tried to explain earlier. So the manufacturing location of the Embraer is in the Brazilian aerospace company headquartered in São José dos Campos, Brazil. And thank you.
Welcome.
And the design and the construction was a sleek, narrow-bodied regional jet with maximum efficiency and performance in short to medium routes. And the key performance specifications include a passenger seat capacity of about 50 seats in a 1 to 2 seating configuration, with a range of 1,550 nautical miles, which is 2,870 kilometers. And the cruising speed is about 833 kilometers, or 518 miles, with a maximum altitude of 37,000 feet. So it's a really good aircraft for an airline with a multiple fleet in order to have as part of their fleet composition.
That's great. And when we look at the history of this aircraft, David Rowe, what do we need to know about the history of the Embraer ERJ145?
Well, it's produced by Embraer, which is, like we said, a Brazilian company. They originally started back in the 60s, 1969, I believe, by the Brazilian government. They bought into the company and made it the national airline. They originally were making aircraft basically for the Brazilian military. And in about the 1980s, they got into, commercial aviation. So at this time, most of your regional aircraft were turboprops, and they had a turboprop, a Brazilian 120, Embraer EMB 120, and it was a very good aircraft. And they thought, well, let's take this aircraft, let's make it faster, a little bit larger, put some jet engines on it, and we're going to have us an even better regional jet. And the first one that they came up with was called the EMB 145 Amazon. And I've seen some pictures of it, and it has straight wings, and the engines are mounted on top of the wing or into the wing. They don't hang down or anything like your traditional jets today do. It was a very unusual looking plane, and due to some money issues with the country, that design never reached fruition. It wasn't a well-received design. So they went back to the drawing board. They got some funding, and they came up with this new version of what we see today, with the traditional 2 engines on the back, high T-tail, swept wing. This plane almost is a large business jet. If you look at it, they actually make a legacy series that is a business jet version of the MB 145. And it was very, very successful because it was faster than your turboprops at the time. I remember going to Tri-Cities Airport, and we had de Havilland Dash 8s coming in every day, over from Atlanta, over from Charlotte. Those were your everyday regional. Well, now they've got these 145s that are faster. They carry, 50 people. They get you in and out really quick. And it was just a great design that made that regional travel very quick and simple. It was easier for the maintainers. You're on a jet engine. You're not on a turboprop. It's standardization. From everything I've read, the pilots like it. It's a very fast plane, fun to fly. And so it became very successful very quick.
And Dave Gorman, when we talk about some of the innovations and the technical achievements of this aircraft, what are we looking at?
Well, I thought the history of this plane that David just described a little bit was really interesting to hear about the early version with that kind of blended engine under wing engine design. And I saw some pictures which I hadn't seen before, and it really is kind of wild looking.
Yes, it's odd, very odd.
Yeah. But they got pretty far along into that design, and then decided at about 80% of design completed and everything, they decided, let's step away from this a little bit. I think they were having some trouble finding partners to go in and help share the cost of this. And they came up with this highly successful redesign with the engines up close to the tail on either side of the fuselage, but on the side of the fuselage, off the wing and everything. And that allows for maybe a greater variety of airports that this plane can service. So that was a big deal. It had a whole lot of digital flight control systems in the early 90s. That was still somewhat new, apparently, and so this was some real advances in terms of pilot operating their instruments and everything like that. Was a big step up. It really, the swept wings was something that is not an unusual design, but it was carried over. And actually, I think that earlier design, Dave, with the engines on the wings, they weren't swept. But then
they were straight.
The upgrade. Yeah, the upgrade that was pretty important. I was seeing about the engine has a de-icing system that's built in, anti-icing with engine bleed air that is pretty common now. But I guess 30 years ago when this was coming into being, that was all pretty new. So high speed for it's Mach 8 or something like that.
Correct.
It moves along pretty good, and it is a regional jet. I don't think they're taking them across the Atlantic at this point. No need for that, But I mean, for its size, and this is a plane that an awful lot of people have flown on, and especially if you're flying out of airports on this side of the state of Tennessee. This is a plane that you're likely to fly on as you connect to a hub. As Julien mentioned, with the hub and spoke system, planes of this size are hugely important in moving people to those bigger airports.
Yeah, and we see a whole lot of that here in East Tennessee. The Mitsubishis, like we talked about last week. I don't know if I've seen any of these at McGee-Tyson, Dave.
I would say, I mean, I've flown on them out of there, so they're, it's not a unusual design that's going to automatically catch your eye. And I find, when I'm looking up and I'm using my apps to identify aircraft, it sure seems like a lot of them are flying overhead. So it's a pretty common design. David, how many were built?
There were 1,231 total built. And yes, they are common because we have them at Tri-Cities Airport weekly, if not almost daily. They depending on the passenger load, it can be the ERJ145 or it could be like a 175. The E-Jet series, which is the big brother to this one now. It's very common at Tri-Cities. As a matter of fact, the picture in the background on our Zoom right now is a picture I took at Tri-Cities of a 145.
Very nice. And I have flown on this, and I'm 6'6", and I can fit on this plane, not comfortably. I don't fit on any plane really comfortably, but with the seating arrangement and everything, I'll usually try to sit on this side that only has one seat. And it's a little cramped, but I could make it work. So it's comfortable, knowing that I only have about 2 hours on the plane total before I get to either my destination or where I'm transferring to a bigger plane.
Yeah,
I can live with that.
Yeah, it's very common. I saw a lot of people complaining about the fact that it is a small cockpit. It is cramped. There's not a lot of storage space in it because if you look at it, it's a small aircraft. But again, you don't need a giant airplane to fly 150, 200 miles to your hub. You just want to get there as quick as possible. And
this will do it and take about 50 people at a time.
That is correct.
I did see, and I think, Dave, you mentioned that there's been a conversion available. That's an upgrade that would go between 16 and 28 seats, which I thought, man, what would that look like? That's a big Learjet.
Well, it is, but do you know why they made the 135 and the 140?
Yeah, 140.
Yeah. So do you know why they made those aircraft?
I don't, but I bet I know who does.
Well, basically, it's because of a labor agreement between the pilots and the airlines. they made an agreement in their labor agreement that said they would only have X number of 50 passenger aircraft in their fleet. And so the airlines asked Embraer to make some smaller versions of the 145 so that they would not break their labor contract, but yet still have aircraft that could carry people to these smaller regional airlines. So this, the ERJ family has three versions, the 135, 140, and 145. And, it's for labor reasons that those were created, so they don't break it.
I saw also that the pilots of the 145 don't have to get any special certification to fly the other ones. So
that is correct.
Made it popular as well.
Yes. And one of the things, this was you're moving from turboprops into turbofan jets. So you've got an easier transition from these E145 jets to larger jets, the 737s and stuff. So if you're in this for the long term, this is a great place to, get some flight time in, get some jet time in, and then move on to bigger and better aircraft.
Well, and that's true, because you mentioned, as we're talking about the advances, this was developed out of a turboprop airliner, the Embraer 120 Brasilia. And, with its turboprop configuration and everything, altitude and speed, those things were all surpassed when they went to the turbofans, range and everything else. So,
absolutely, yes.
And Julien, as we're talking about going into the impact of the ERJ145, what was the difference with the passenger experience when it come to this particular aircraft?
Well, this is, you really asked the question the nail on the head, because as you know, I'm all about airlines and the passenger experience, and that is where the bottom line is. So the Embraer ERJ145 made a significant impact on regional airlines and the passenger experience, including fleet flexibility, fuel efficiency, increased route connectivity. But above all, it was the passenger cabin comfort. The aircraft introduced more comfortable flying experiences for passengers on regional jets with a single aisle, a 2-by-1 seating configuration. So couples could sit together, or a single passenger could sit on their own. And because the passenger count was small, each passenger had the opportunity to have individualized cabin service and experience the essence of air travel and premium airline hospitality at its finest. So we talked about the speed and the reliability of the aircraft, as well as the increased flight availability. However, I wanted to mention a little bit about the technological advances. So it was the modernization of regional fleets. The ERJ145 played a key role in modernizing regional fleets, replacing older and less efficient turboprops. And this not only improved fuel efficiency, but also reduced noise pollution, both in the cabin and at the airports, which is also very critical. It also had advanced avionics, equipped with state-of-the-art avionics for its time. The ERJ145 improved navigation and safety features, boosting operational efficiency for airlines and enhancing the pilot confidence. And it also had economic impact on the aviation industry through growth of regional carriers, influence on fleet strategy, and it influenced the next generation of aircraft, the E-Jet series. So it really made a big significance in the impact on regional carriers for passengers and for the airlines as well.
David Rowe, what can you add to that on the difference in the passenger experience versus other aircraft?
Well, I mean, he pretty much has got it covered. I mean, it's not, you're not, a luxury seating situation, but you are comfortable. It's, good space. It's not super crowded because there's only 50 people on board, easy on, easy off. One of the things Dave was talking about was it's the side mounted engine, so it's low to the ground. So, you can just put the door down and get on and off very easily. You don't have to have, stairs and, extra, equipment on a base or on the airport to, get people on and off. So it's just simple, easy to work with, and, fits with the smaller airports infrastructure very well. So it's just a great little airplane that does a wonderful job.
Dave Gorman, I've been on many of MD-88s, MD-80s. I was on one Embraer, and I'm not even sure if it was a 145 or not, but I was very young. Do you have that roar? Do you have that Mad Dog roar from those engines if you're in the back, like we talked about on the Mad Dog episode?
Well, thankfully, it's not quite as loud, but I have had the misfortune of sitting right in front of the engines on an early morning flight, 2-hour flight down to New Orleans. And that, knowing where I was headed to, helped me deal with the noise right outside my ear. But it was also kind of, it's loud. It's not a quiet plane, but it's not as loud as the Mad Dog. I did look around the front of the into the engine, and it was red. It was glowing a little bit, which worried me a bit. Mm-hmm. But it all sounded fine, and it did fine. Nobody seemed too concerned. So a little early morning show there as the sun was coming up.
An interesting thing about the engines, they are a Rolls-Royce engine. I believe it's an AE 3007 turbofan. But what's interesting about that is the AE. The AE stands for Allison Engines. This is actually originally designed by Allison. So Rolls-Royce makes them today, but it's originally an Allison engine. So there's some history there for Allison engines in aviation.
Very interesting. As we talk about the Embraer ERJ145, let's talk about legacy for a second and the influence that it had on modern day aviation. David Rowe.
Well, I mean, it's still making, like I said, I can go out to Tri-Cities Airport probably tomorrow or in the next couple of days, and it's still growing strong. As a matter of fact, civilian operators, Piedmont Airlines flies them exclusively under the American Eagle brand. Commute Air flies them, and that's in the U.S. JSX, which is a U.S. and Mexico airline. They fly there. Airlink flies them in South Africa. Contour Airlines, which interestingly is based out of Smyrna, Tennessee, which I did not know.
Go Vols.
Yeah, I've seen them, fly into Charlotte many, many times, and they still fly them. Logan Air in Scotland and Tar Airlines in Mexico. So these are all still using the 145 today. So it's still filling a need. It's still, making itself useful. And I don't see it changing for any time to come. So I think we'll see them around for another 10 years or so.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of this type of aircraft go away, or not go to the boneyard or wherever.
Well, but they're being repurposed back out of the boneyard. I was watching Envoy Air had an entire fleet of them that they retired to the boneyard, and they're being put out to these airlines that are still using them. So parts, full planes, they're still there, they're available, and they're still creating revenue for people. It's a great plane.
It's a wonderful plane. And Dave Gorman, your thoughts on the legacy and the lasting influence of this aircraft?
Well, I was thinking about, I think David also made earlier point about pilots kind of moving through this aircraft and moving on up into maybe larger jets or things like this. But there are enough of these that, you could have a pretty good career just flying planes of this size and planes of this model. But that kind of stepping stone and training is an important part, and they serve a role in the feet of pilots who are going to be growing and developing those skills and moving up into the jumbos and things like that. So certainly that they play a huge role in getting people from place to place and safely. But they also are an important part of pilot training too, I would say.
Absolutely. And Julien, we all know Julien is up there in jumbo jet country. But what is your thoughts on the legacy of the ERJ145, Julien?
Oh, thank you, Derrick, for asking that question. I think David Rowe really nailed summed it up quite well. This aircraft left a legacy of being able to connect smaller cities to big hubs. And the issue is that here in Canada, we have a lot of small towns up in northern Canada that are isolated, that in the winter there's no road connectivity. And so they rely on aircraft in order to service these small villages. And this is the aircraft that would come in and bring supplies and bring passengers in and crew and also environmentalist or medical aid staff, bring people in, do what they need to do, and take them back out. And so it connected small. It was the lifeline to many smaller towns. And so the ERJ145 was the one that aircraft that linked those small communities. And so I don't think that this aircraft is going to be going away, because aviation links is that critical link, and so we need that to be able to connect to those long haul flights. And so many airlines choose this aircraft as to play that critical part in that fleet composition, which is so critical for the success of airlines. And so this aircraft was really good for that. It had optimal efficiency, the economic viability in terms of fuel consumption, and finally, the legacy of reliability. Its robust performance and reliable service record set a standard that influenced airline purchasing decisions and encouraged long-term fleet planning around efficiency and environmental sustainability as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And jumping towards the end of the show here, my favorite part, fun facts about the Embraer ERJ145 with David Rowe. Take it away, David.
All right. Well, I've got a few here. Let's start out with, did you know that this aircraft was licensed built in China?
No, I did not know that.
This is another one of those aircraft where China was involved. They, in 2002, Embraer made a deal with Chinese aerospace manufacturer Harbin Aircraft Industry Group. And basically, it's a joint venture, and Embraer made kits that they would send to China, and China would put it in their factory and put it together. They made, I think they were going to try and make 24 aircraft per year, but ultimately, Hainan Airlines cut back on what they ordered, and they only ended up making 41 ERJ145s in China. They also made 5 of the Legacy Series biz jets, but China was involved in it. I think this was prior to China's aviation industry really picking up, because today they are introducing some regional type short haul jets that was it the Cormac ARJ or something like that. So their aviation industry is growing over there. They're developing their own thing now. But at one time, China and Embraer had a deal. Something we didn't talk about was the military aspects of this airplane. There are several different models that were used for certain things. The C-99 was a transport. The 145 SA was airborne early warning. It's got a big giant bar that's above the fuselage that they use. They have a maritime patrol 145 MP. There's also some models that have been used by the Hellenic Air Force as airborne early warning. The Indian Air Force uses them as airborne early warning. So, there's one of them that was interesting is an R99B, has synthetic aperture radar on it, so they can go out and scan with that. And it's been used by a lot of different countries, Argentinian Air Force, Angola, Belgium, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Greece, India, Mexico, Panama, Thailand. So lots of military uses for this aircraft. I think Belgium used it as their VIP transport for like 15 years. So, very well suited for that use. Something I've talked about was safety of this aircraft. This airplane has been involved in some accidents. It said 26 in total, with 8 of them being a complete loss. However, none of the ERJ145s, no one has lost their life in one of these accidents. Most of them.
That's a stunning record.
It's an amazing record.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put an asterisk on that, but yes, you're right. The commercial aviation has been exceedingly safe. Most of the things that happened to it were, slid off the runway in icing conditions, aquaplaning in bad weather. Here's one where too high of a descent rate and they cracked the tail. What was the other one? There was one where there was a training flight and they stalled the plane on takeoff. Pilot error. Nobody was on board but the pilots. The strangest one was one of the 145s collided with the hangar doors while they were doing an engine run-up test. So they didn't secure it. But all of those, no one has lost their life in this aircraft. So that's an amazing fact. However, as we talked about before, they do have a BizJet version, the Legacy series. And in the 29th of September of 2006, the Gull Transportes Aeroflight 1907, which is a Boeing 737-800, collided midair with an Embraer Legacy 600 BizJet. They flew right into each other. The Legacy Embraer sliced off half of the wing on one side, causing that aircraft to crash, and there was 154 passengers and crew that were killed. However, the Embraer only lost its winglet, and they were able to return to an airport and land safely. And as far as I know, that aircraft was repaired and is back in service and still in use. So technically there has been one accident with, deaths, but not for commercial aviation. It was in the civilian sector. So that's, pretty darn amazing for a jet. And a couple of little minor things here. So let's see here. Here we go. Interesting tidbit that this was in a comment on a video I was watching. It said that the first 5 or 6 aircraft that Embraer produced were mostly hand built. Wow. So, for example, serial number 4 had its own maintenance manual because of the differences in the construction. You could not take a panel off of that aircraft and put it onto another EMB 145 and expect it to fit. They were hand built, literally one of a kind aircraft. And finally, nicknames. Does anybody have a nickname for this aircraft?
I don't have one for this one like I did the suck and blow.
Well, this one actually has one. It's called the Jungle Jet.
Jungle Jet.
Why is that?
Well, where was it built? In Brazil.
Yes.
What's the biggest jungle in the world?
That's Brazil,
the Amazon. Yeah. So therefore, you have a jungle jet. So there you go. A little bit of trivia knowledge.
So going into closing thoughts of this aircraft, after all that overload of information that you just give us, David Rowe, what is your closing thoughts of the Embraer ERJ145?
It's a great airplane that I enjoy seeing. Like I said, I get to see it regularly. It flies over where I work. I see it at the airport. Expect to see it for a long time to come. Have not ridden on it. Haven't had a flight in one, so there's still an opportunity for that to happen. And but great plane, and look forward to seeing it for a long time to come.
Dave Gorman, closing thoughts on the ERJ145.
Well, as usual, I was just thinking of something. I drew a total blank. Maybe you guys can help me. There was a very popular twin-engine turboprop plane, Metroliner is what I'm thinking of.
Swearingen.
Yeah, Swearingen. Mm-hmm. And I flew a lot on those 30 years ago. And, some of those I know still are active in the military and maybe some small airlines or things like that. But this basically replaced that in terms of reliability and speed and range and altitude and all that kind of stuff, and comfort as well. I flew on one of those airplanes from here to Nashville one time. And besides the pilots, I was the only person on the plane. And they said, sit in the last seat in the back row, either the left side or the right. But whatever seat you sit in, stay in it. They needed me for weight and balance. And I'm like, oh, gosh. Okay. I felt like ballast, but small plane. This is a lot more comfortable, a lot faster. And as I said, it really did kind of change the in that role. It was a real leader in terms of what airlines can provide and getting you from the smaller regional airports to the bigger ones where you can continue your flight in bigger and better comfort, I suppose. Great plane, though.
Absolutely. Julien Martin, your thoughts on the ERJ, the Echo Romeo Juliet 145?
Well, this aircraft is truly a movie star because it has also appeared in several movies, including Blood Diamond, filmed in 2006. The Embraer was seen briefly during an airport scene. And Catch Me If You Can, in 2002, the aircraft appears in airport scenes depicting regional airline operations. So it's always nice to see a movie where they feature an aircraft. And I was like marveling that on how it's all put together. So those are my closing thoughts. So always watch out for those aircraft in your movies.
Definitely, and I did not know that, so very interesting facts you bring to the table there, Julien. And let's jump into social media. David Rowe over at Aerophile. I know the photo behind you in our meeting here. Is that from Aerophile, or is that just a random?
No, that is on Aerophile. You can see it on my website. And hey, Dave, if you want to see a Swearingen Metro, I shot a picture of one this week at Tri-Cities Airport. I'll have it up on Aerophile if it's not already.
I still struggle with how I feel about flying on that plane, so I'm not sure I'm ready to look at a picture of it. But thanks for tipping me off, at least.
Well, and the reason it was at Tri-Cities Airport is it was picking up, I believe they said 60 cats and transferring them to South Carolina. So it was a pet rescue situation.
Oh, okay.
God bless them for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there. But anyway, lots of stuff like that to see on Aerophile. Like I said, I've taken a ton of helicopter pictures this week, all kinds of stuff on Aerophile on Facebook.com. You can go check out there. Just come check me out, aerophile.com.
Absolutely, we will definitely. And I'm telling you right now, I've been on Aerophile. It's you'll be there a while. Trust me. Dave Gorman, what have you got going on your social media? Tell us about it.
Well, I will just back up what you said there about Aerophile. When they say time suck, that sounds like you're wasting your time, but you don't waste time on Aerophile. There's so many variety of things that have come through the Tri-Cities that Dave documents for us, but also he gets out and, man, he puts a lot of effort into producing those videos. His page with his pictures, the ones that he shares anyways.
I've got a backlog. I've got such a backlog.
I know, brother, but you do a great job of documenting all kinds of things. So, 100 years from now, whatever the internet looks like, I think that yours will still be going strong with people happy to see what aviation looked like in the 2000s. So, and compared to that, mine is kind of sparse. Gormania is my YouTube channel, and it does have some aviation videos up there. among other things. I do have some recent things from the EAA event in Morristown from a couple of weeks ago, Morristown, Tennessee. But nothing new. I think I'm going to go out to the airport here in Knoxville tomorrow at Island Home and take a ride on the Ford Tri-Motor. We'll see if I could do that. I've done it before, and if I do, I'll definitely put up some video.
Yeah, they've got that going. The EAA has that going this week, correct, Dave?
It arrived, I think, yesterday, but it's definitely there today. I've seen pictures of it online today.
Yes, don't forget you've got some A-10s that are going to be flying over Neyland Stadium
University
this weekend.
of Tennessee,
so
yes.
You might want to head to Tyson and try to catch them.
Most definitely.
That'd definitely be a good one. Julien Martinson, what have you got going on social media for us?
Well, I'm going to be launching my second book, Mediocrity is Killing Your Superpower. So that's going to be going live on Amazon very shortly. And I'm really looking forward to Dare to Innovate on October 24th here at Downsview Airport. They're having an all-day conference on aircraft innovation and engineering. And so it's an all-day conference. I'm pumped to go. We want to learn and see what's going on locally. And however, I don't have to take an ERJ145. I can go there by my car. Can you imagine? So, but all those other people in the region hop on 145 ERJ and come on down to Mississauga or Toronto and come participate in this conference about aircraft engineering.
Good deal. Appreciate that, Julien. And guys, we want to mention the fact that for about 2 years now, I've been co-hosting and producing this podcast, but we now have our own producer, Mr. Shay Jones. Say hello, Shay.
What's up? How are you doing? I'm Shay.
Good. Yeah, this is our new producer. He's going to be handling everything on the producing end. So, as we like to say from now on, everything is Shay's fault.
It is. It is. Absolutely.
Finally, Derrick doesn't get the blame.
I'm rubber, you're glue, man.
It only took 2 years, but we appreciate having Shay on board, and I just want to throw you in there and let everybody get to know you.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Shay, for participating and all the effort that you bring to this team, and it's very much appreciated.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Zoom's a little bit different than the last thing. I was trying to see if I could get my face to go away and just have just the background. And like as you were talking about planes, I was looking them up and trying to get photos of the planes and have them just show up over my face. And I was like, I haven't figured that out yet. So if I ever do, that would be kind of a cool thing to have happen. So
yeah,
get on it. Get working at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can go back to mute now. Thank you.
Okay.
Dang.
You have to understand our relationship. Shay is my cousin, by the way. So
yeah,
we have a different way of talking to each other. So.
Oh, 100%.
So yeah, definitely, guys. I enjoyed it.
Yes, great time, great plane. Looking forward to the next one.
Should be good. Good talking to everybody.
Definitely, it's always a lot of fun.
Thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate very much all your contributions and your thoughts on this aircraft.
Perfect. And we'll end the podcast here. So for David Rowe, Dave Gorman, Julien Martinson, Shay Jones producing, I'm Derrick Beeler. Thanks for listening to the History of Aviation podcast.